The stranger on the corneret was a hot Tuesday afternoon in Silicon Valley. The kind of heat that pressed against your skin like a silent weight. People walked fast, their eyes locked on their phones, their minds already at their next meeting. But one man stood still at the corner of a quiet street, watching. Sundar Pichai had taken an unplanned detour. His driver had suggested it after noticing heavy traffic on the main road. Sundar didn't mind. He often welcomed detours. They reminded him that not everything had to go as planned to be meaningful. As the car slowed at a red light, Sundar's eyes fell on a man sitting under a torn umbrella. The man had a metal leg. His right pant leg was pinned up, and beside him was a tray filled with homemade snacks, small packets wrapped in paper. A cardboard sign leaned against the tray. It said, "Veteran. No pity. Just trying to earn with dignity." Sundar felt something move inside him. A quiet shift, like a thread pulling at the edge of his thoughts. He watched as people passed by, some glancing, most ignoring. The man didn't shout or beg. He simply sat, his eyes calm, his back straight. The light turned green. "Sir?" the driver asked. "Pull over," Sundar said softly. The car stopped near the curb. Sundar stepped out, his shoes touching the warm concrete. The air smelled of tar and heat. He walked toward the man, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time. Something raw, real. "Oh," Sundar said. The man looked up. His eyes were sharp, steady, older than Sundar had expected. "Want to buy some snacks?" the man asked. "Yes," Sundar replied. "But more than that, I'd like to sit with you, if that's okay." The man raised an eyebrow, but nodded. "Sure, I don't bite." Sundar smiled and sat on the edge of the low stone wall behind the man set up. He took a packet and opened it. The snack was spicy, crunchy, filled with flavor. But Sundar wasn't thinking about the taste. "What's your name?" Sundar asked. "My friends call me Ram," he said. "My enemies call me, sir." Sundar laughed softly. "I'll stick with Ram." Ram nodded. "And you?" Sundar. Ram paused. Looked at him, and "You look familiar." "People say that sometimes," Sundar said, not explaining further. For the next few minutes, they sat in silence, watching the world move. A mother tugging her child, a delivery guy checking his phone, a group of teenagers laughing too loudly. "What happened?" Sundar asked gently, nodding toward Ram's leg. Ram's eyes didn't flinch. "War. Roadside blast. Lost the leg. Came home to a country that forgot I existed." The words were simple, clean, but heavy. "I'm sorry," Sundar said. "Don't be," Ram replied. "I'm alive. I can feel the sun. I can still make people smile with my snacks." Sundar nodded. He respected that, more than he could say. "You could be anywhere," Ram said after a pause. "Why are you sitting here?" Sundar looked at the snack in his hand. "Maybe I needed to be reminded what real strength looks like." Ram smiled. Not a wide smile, but real, deep. "I didn't catch your full name," Ram said. "Sundar Pichai." Ram stared at him, blinked, then let out a low whistle. "The Google guy?" Sundar chuckled. "Yeah, the Google guy." Ram laughed, shaking his head. "And here I was thinking you were just some guy in a nice shirt who likes snacks." "Well, I do like snacks," Sundar replied. They both laughed, but behind the laughter, something was building. Something that neither of them could name yet. A current, a beginning. Sundar checked his watch. He had a meeting in 20 minutes. But suddenly, it didn't feel as important. "How long have you been doing this?" Sundar asked. 4 years, Ram said. "Started with nothing. Made a little every day. Refused to beg. Dignity, you know." "Yes," Sundar said. "I know." They talked a little more. About life, about small things, about nothing in particular. And when Sundar finally stood to leave, he felt a strange heaviness in his chest. "You'll be here tomorrow?" he asked. "Same time." "Same spot," Ram replied. Nodded. "I'll see you then." He walked back to the car, got in. But before the door closed, he turned and looked one more time. Ram had already gone back to sitting quietly, offering snacks to anyone willing to see him. The car pulled away, and in that moment, Sundar knew. This wasn't the end, This was the start of something big. Asterisk the note under the rock, Sundar. Barely slept that night. He had gone home, finished his meetings, and tried to return to routine. But something inside him had shifted. It wasn't just sympathy. It wasn't guilt either. It was something older, deeper. It felt like a memory from a place he couldn't name. The image of Ram, calm, proud, weathered by pain, but not beaten, kept flashing behind his eyes. He remembered the way Ram held himself. The stillness of his posture, the quiet dignity in his voice. The way he didn't ask for anything yet offered a kind of presence that made the noise of the world slow down. Sundar had spoken to heads of state and world leaders, had stood on global stages, but something about that short moment with Ram had stayed with him more than any applause or headline ever had. And then the next day, before sunrise, Sundar was already awake. He skipped his usual morning routine, waved off his assistant's schedule, and told his driver to take him back to that same corner. It was still early. The city hadn't come alive yet. Traffic lights blinked lazily. Shop shutters were half closed. A soft mist floated in the air like a secret waiting to be revealed. As the car turned onto the street, Sundar leaned forward, his eyes scanning the sidewalk. His heart beat a little faster, not from fear, but from anticipation. He wasn't sure what he was expecting. Maybe another talk, maybe more stories, maybe a chance to offer something back. But when they reached the spot, his breath caught in his throat. The corner was empty. No umbrella. No tray of snacks. No. Ram. Just a cracked sidewalk and a few dried leaves swirling in the breeze. Sundar stepped out of the car without a word. He walked slowly to the exact spot where Ram had been. The silence pressed around him like a question. He looked left, right, across the street. No trace. No sign that the man had ever existed. But then, something small caught his eye, just by the base of the wall where they had sat yesterday. A piece of paper was pinned under a smooth, rounded rock. It wasn't large or neatly folded. It looked hurried, a little worn, the edges curling slightly, and written across the top, his name, Sundar. His fingers trembled slightly as he lifted the rock and picked up the paper. It was torn from a notebook, the handwriting rough but clear. He read it once, then again. And again. Sundar, I had to leave. Some days are harder than others. Not because of pain in my leg that I've learned to ignore, but the pain of being unseen. Thank you for seeing me. You reminded me I'm still here. If you ever really want to know my story, find me where the city forgets its own name. Under the bridge near the old train yard. No promises, just truth. Ram. Sundar stood still, the note trembling slightly in his hand. The breeze picked up. Cars passed behind him. But he barely noticed. The city forgets its own name. What did that mean? He read the words again, then looked at the driver. Do you know the train yard? Yes, sir, the driver replied. Take me there, now. As they drove, Sundar stared out the window, his mind racing. Something about this felt urgent. Not just a curiosity anymore. It was personal now. He couldn't explain why, but it felt like a thread had been tied between him and Ram. One that needed to be followed, wherever it led. They passed glass towers and tech campuses, the glittering signs of the valley's success. But slowly, the streets grew older. The sidewalks cracked more. Buildings looked tired. Even the air felt heavier. Finally, the car turned down a narrow road lined with rusted fences. Ahead was the train yard, long abandoned, its tracks overgrown, with weeds and graffiti. A few tents were pitched in the shadows of a crumbling overpass. A place forgotten by time and by almost everyone. Sundar stepped out and walked slowly. A man by one of the tents watched him with guarded eyes. Sundar approached with a respectful nod. I am looking for someone named Ram, he said gently. Man tilted his head, studying him. Why? He left me a note. He said he might be here. After a moment of silence, the man pointed toward the far edge of the overpass. You might find him past the burn barrel. But don't take it personal if he doesn't talk much. Sundar nodded. Thank you. He walked on. Each step felt heavier. The ground was uneven. Broken bottles crunched beneath his shoes. Smoke from a small fire drifted in the air. He reached the edge of the overpass and saw a figure sitting alone, back against the concrete wall. Facing the tracks. It was Ram. His head was bowed. His legs stretched out. He didn't look up as Sundar approached. I got your note, Sundar said softly. Ram didn't turn. I didn't expect you to come, but you hoped I would. Ram's shoulders tensed for a second, then relaxed. I wasn't sure what kind of man you were, he said. Asterisk. I'm not sure either, Sundar replied. That made Ram chuckle once, a low sound in his throat. Fair. A silence settled. Not awkward, but fragile. Why here? Sundar asked. Why this place? Ram finally looked at him. His eyes were darker today, more guarded. This is where the world throws its ghosts, he said. The broken ones, the forgotten ones. I come here when I don't want to be reminded of things I've lost. But you still bring light with you? Sundar said. What light? Your strength? Your dignity? Your story? Ram turned away. You don't know my story? Then tell me, Sundar said. Asterisk. Ram hesitated. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, slowly, he began to speak. I was 19 when I joined. Didn't think twice. My father was military. My grandfather too. I thought I'd come back a hero. I came back with half a leg and a backpack full of pills. The hardest part wasn't the pain. It was the silence. The way people looked through me. I went from uniform to invisible in 3 months. His voice didn't break. It didn't need to. I tried to get jobs. No one wanted to hire a vet with a limp and a shadow behind his eyes. I slept in parks, borrowed shoes, sold my medals just to eat. Then I started making those snacks, just to survive. Turned out people love food more than stories. Sundar swallowed hard. You should be honored. Supported. Ram shook his head. I don't want pity. I just want to matter. Even for 5 minutes a day, Sundar sat beside him. The concrete was cold, hard. You matter more than you know, he said quietly. They sat together, staring at the tracks that led nowhere. The silence was no longer fragile. It was shared. Strong. After a long time, Ram spoke again. Why did you come back? Because, Sundar said, I think you're the kind of person the world needs to remember. Why me? Because people like you remind the rest of us what real courage looks like. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind, the kind that survives in silence. Ram looked at him then, and something softened his expression. A flicker of trust. So what now? He asked. Now, Sundar said, we build something together. Ram raised an eyebrow. Build what? Something that makes sure no one like you is ever invisible again. Ram didn't answer right away. He just nodded slowly, and somewhere deep inside that broken place, a light flickered on asterisk shadows from the past. Wind moved gently through the abandoned train yard. Metal scraped softly against metal as the breeze swayed rusted chains hanging from forgotten signal poles. Sundar Pichai sat beside Ram, not speaking, just listening to the rhythm of silence. In that stillness, there was more humanity than in any room of polished floors and power suits. When Sundar returned to his hotel later that day, he didn't go straight to his laptop or his waiting phone. Instead, he walked to the window and stared out over the city. From above, everything looked orderly, smooth, structured. But he now knew the truth that beneath those layers, there were corners filled with people whose stories had been erased. People like Ram. His mind wouldn't rest. An idea had started to form during the ride back. Not a casual gesture. Not a donation. Something bigger. Something that could last. He wanted to build a platform. Not just a website or app. A real system that would find, support, and amplify veterans who had been forgotten. A place where their skills, their stories, their pride could be valued again. where they could rebuild, not be rescued, but before anything could move forward. Sundar knew he needed to understand Ram completely, not just the parts Ram had offered willingly. He needed the whole picture. The past, the scars. The truth got so he made a discreet call to a trusted contact, a retired intelligence analyst who owed Sundar a favor. He didn't give full details, just asked for help locating records on a man named Ram, possibly short for Ramesh, who had served in the Indian Army about 2 decades ago and had been injured in combat. It may take a day or two, the analyst said. Some of those files are buried. Sundar thanked him and hung up. He hated doing it without telling Ram first. But he had learned something in his years leading one of the world's most powerful companies. Sometimes, when you're trying to protect someone's dignity, you have to go through the back door. 2 days passed. Sundar visited the train yard. Each evening, he and Ram talked more, laughed, sometimes. One night, Ram even brought Sundar a special batch of snacks he'd made from memory, his mother's recipe. He said, "I haven't cooked this in years," Ram said, handing him the warm packet wrapped in newspaper. "Why now?" Sundar asked. "Because maybe I finally feel like someone will remember it." They sat under the crumbling bridge and ate quietly. The food was rich, spicy, and filled with the warmth of lost time. Sundar wanted to ask more questions about Ram's past, but something in Ram's face told him not to push. Not yet. On the third morning, Sundar's phone buzzed. It was the analyst. "Are you alone?" the voice asked. "Yes," Sundar replied, his heart already beginning to race. "I found him. But there's something strange. His file is sealed. I had to pull from an off-grid archive. That usually means special ops or sensitive history." Sundar's brow furrowed. "He told me he was injured in a blast." He was. "But the full report says the mission was classified. The official record lists him as MIA for 9 months. That's extremely rare. And there's more." "What?" "There's a black mark. Not a dishonorable discharge, but something similar. The file says he was under investigation for disobedience and unsanctioned actions behind enemy lines. The exact details are redacted." Sundar's hand tightened around the phone. "Did he do something wrong?" "We can't say. There's no final judgment in the file, just that the matter was closed after he was injured. It was buried, not cleared, not convicted, just forgotten." "Why would they do that?" "Only one reason," the analyst said. "Either he did something they couldn't admit, or he saw something they wanted hidden." Sundar didn't respond right away. His mind spun through the possibilities. None of this matched the man he had come to know. Ram was proud but not arrogant, guarded but kind. There was no bitterness in him, only silence, and that silence now held a secret. "Can you send me a copy of the file?" Sundar asked. "Only parts of it. The rest is locked. Send what you can." A few minutes later, the documents arrived. Grainy scans. Most of the pages were blacked out, but one stuck out. A photo of Ram, younger, in uniform, standing in a dense forest with 3 other soldiers. 2 of their faces were blurred. One was marked as killed in action. Ram stood in the center, his face serious. There was something in his eyes. Even then, something burdened Sundar. Stared at the photo for a long time. That evening, as the sky turned orange and the city lights blinked awake, he returned to the train yard. Ram was there, as always, sitting on a worn blanket, sharpening a small knife he used to cut fruit. "You're early," Ram said, without looking up. "I needed to talk to you." Ram glanced at him. Something in Sundar's voice must have sounded different. He put the knife down and sat straighter. "What is it?" "I asked someone to find your records," Sundar said quietly. Ram's jaw stiffened. "Why?" "Because I want to build something with you, and I need to understand everything. Not just what you've told me." A long silence passed. Ram didn't move. "Didn't speak?" "I know about the sealed file," Sundar said. "I know they marked it for disobedience. But they never proved anything. They never even tried." Ram looked away. Then, finally he spoke. They sent us into a jungle with no map and no exit plan. Our mission was to intercept a weapons trade. But when we got there, we found something else. What? Children. Dozens of them taken from villages, trained to carry bombs, used as shields. Sundar felt a cold weight in his chest. We were told to abort, leave, but I refused. We stayed. We fought. We saved as many as we could. He looked at Sundar now, his eyes burning. One of the kids detonated. He was 10. I lost my leg, lost 2 of my men. The others never forgave me for not following the order. But if I had, all those children would have died. Sundar's throat tightened. He didn't speak. He couldn't. They called it disobedience, Ram said. I call it humanity. The silence that followed was thick with unshed grief. Sundar finally reached into his pocket and pulled out the photo. I believe you, he said, and I think the world needs to hear your story. No, Ram said sharply. They'll twist it. They always do. Make me into a villain or a martyr. I don't want either. Then tell it your way, Sundar said. Your voice, your truth. Not for fame, not for pity, but so no one else like you ever. Tail's invisible again. Ram stared at him. For the first time, his eyes filled with moisture. You think people care? He whispered. I do, Sundar said. And I know I'm not the only one. Ram looked away, wiped his eyes with the back of his sleeve, then nodded once, slowly. Okay, he said. But on one condition. What is it? If we do this, we do it for them, the ones who didn't come back. The ones who came back with pieces missing inside and out. Deal, Sundar said. But as they sat in the fading light, neither of them noticed. The figure watching from the shadows beneath the bridge. A man with a scar across his face, holding a phone. Snapping photos? Sending them to someone else. Someone who wanted Ram's past to stay buried. Asterisk. The warning envelope was like ordinary. The kind that held nothing more than bills or printed hotel receipts. Yet Sundar held it like it might explode in his hands. He had returned to his room late after another visit to the train yard with Ram. They had spoken longer than usual that evening, making plans, sketching out the beginning of a platform. A network of support, not just charity, but something built. To last, something solid. Ram had even begun to smile more. That cautious hope had started to rise between them like a fragile house being built brick by brick. But now, as Sundar stood in the quiet hotel room lit by a single warm lamp, everything felt colder. Smaller. He turned the envelope over. There was no return address, no stamp. It had been slid under the door sometime after he left. He opened it slowly. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Number signature. No name. No decoration. Just one line printed in bold black ink. Asterisk. Stop digging or he disappears. The paper trembled in his hand, but it wasn't fear. It was something worse. Something that reached down into the root of his gut. Someone was watching. Someone knew about Ram. Sundar immediately picked up the phone, fingers moving on instinct. He called the only man he trusted to read between lines, the retired analyst. I just got a threat, Sundar said. As soon as the line picked up, the voice on the other end grew sharp. What kind? Anonymous, said to stop digging or Ram disappears. A pause. Did you tell anyone about him? Only you, Sundar said. And my assistant, vaguely. Then someone else is watching him already. Or are you? What does this mean? It means you're closer to something buried, and someone doesn't want it uncovered. Sundar looked out the window. Shadows stretched across the city, like fingers reaching into unseen corners. I wanted to protect him, he said quietly. But I don't know what we're walking into. Do you trust him? The analyst asked. Yes. Then tell him everything. Tonight, before they make the first move. Sundar hung up and grabbed his coat. He didn't wait for the driver. He called a car from the street and headed toward the train yard. The city moved slowly at night. Neon lights flickered on broken storefronts. Alleyways whispered secrets to the wind. As they neared the overpass, Sundar saw the fires again, small, cooking fires and metal drums. lighting the faces of the forgotten. He found Ram where he always was, seated by the crumbling wall with his back straight and his eyes thoughtful. But tonight, the peace was thinner. His body stiffened as soon as he saw Sundar approach. "You look like you saw a ghost," Ram said. "I might have," Sundar replied. He handed the note to Ram. Ram read it once. Didn't blink. His face didn't change. But his hand curled slowly into a fist. "You shouldn't have looked into my past," Ram said, voice low. "I had to help you. And now someone wants to shut that door forever." "They won't stop," Ram said. "You don't know what they buried." "Then tell me," Sundar said. "All of it." Ram looked around. The fires flickered in the dark. A dog barked in the distance. And then, slowly, he nodded. "Come with me," he said. They moved through the maze of the train yard, past tents and sleeping bags, past broken dreams wrapped in blankets. Eventually, they reached a rusted cargo container wedged between two walls. Ram opened it with a key pulled from a string around his neck. Inside, there was no bed, no food, just a series of crates, all stacked neatly. Military tags, old papers, newspaper clippings, folders wrapped in plastic. "What is this?" Sundar asked. "This," Ram said, "is everything they tried to erase." He opened a folder and pulled out a photo. A grainy black and white image of a small village burned to the ground. Another photo, rows of makeshift graves, and another man in uniform posing beside trucks carrying crates marked with government seals. They weren't just training child soldiers, Ram said. They were using them to move illegal weapons across borders. Someone high up made a deal. We stumbled onto it. That's why they told us to abort. And you stayed, Sundar said. We tried to report it. My team, they started disappearing one by one. Accidents. Suicides. One even drowned in a bathtub. He didn't even know how to swim. It wasn't just war. It was cleanup. Ram stepped back from the files. He looked older in that moment, not in his face, but in his soul. Like he had lived too many lives just to carry one truth. They called me a traitor, he said. But I was the one who stayed to protect those kids. I buried the evidence in case I didn't survive. Sundar stared at the files. At the raw, unfiltered truth spread across the floor. We need to bring this to light, he said. We need people to see this. Ram shook his head. They'll kill me. They'll ruin you. Maybe, Sundar said. But maybe not. Maybe the world's different now. Maybe the truth can win. Ram looked at him. There was pain in his eyes, but also something else. Trust. You really believe that? I believe in you, Sundar said. And I believe this story is bigger than both of us. But before either man could speak again, there was a sharp crack in the distance. Gunfire. One shot. Ram's eyes widened. Get down. He shouted. The bullet hit the metal wall of the container, inches from Sundar's shoulder. The sound echoed like a scream in a cave. Ram pulled Sundar to the ground and slammed the container shut. Darkness swallowed them whole. They found us, Ram whispered. Outside. Footsteps. Fast. Scattered. Then silence. They stayed there, breathless, pressed against cold steel. The tension in the air was thick enough to crush. After 10 minutes, when the world outside remained still, Ram unlocked the container and peeked out. They're gone, he said. For now. Sundar stepped out into the cool night air. His heart was still racing. Adrenaline burned in his veins. This isn't just a story, he said. Double quotes now. Ram replied. This is war. They stood there, among the wreckage of secrets and shadows, knowing nothing would ever be the same again. Asterisk, the missing Phyllis, the world outside, was just beginning to wake. Soft sunlight spilled through the window blinds, painting the floor in pale gold. Birds chirped in the distance, a gentle promise of an ordinary day. But there was nothing ordinary about this morning. Sundar's hand hovered over the desk drawer. It was empty. He blinked once, then opened the second drawer. Also empty. His breathing slowed, became sharper, more controlled. He opened the closet next. Nothing. The bottom of the bed, the case beneath the chair. The safe under the floor panel, nothing. The folders were gone. Every single document, every photograph, every piece of evidence Ram had risked his life to save. All of it erased. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the strange, chilling silence that filled the room. The kind of silence that follows violation. Not loud, not chaotic, just cold, precise. Someone had come in. Someone had taken everything and left something behind. Sundar, single quotes, SIs, locked on the object sitting in the middle of the floor. Where the files had been, a single dog tag, small, scratched, worn down by time. He picked it up, slowly, held it in his hand like it might vanish. The metal was warm from the sun, but heavy with meaning. On one side, faded letters barely visible. Property of 19th Recon. Child ID. Number 048 on the other side. Freshly carved, raw and deliberate. Sundar stared at it for a long time. This wasn't just a threat. It was a message. Whoever had taken the files had gone to the trouble of leaving this behind. Not as a clue, but a warning. They knew who he was. They had been watching closely. And they were telling him that the past had not only found him, it had claimed him. He rushed to his phone and called Ram. No answer. He tried again. And again. Asterisk. It was never meant to be told, Ram replied. It was never even meant to exist. Sundar sat down beside him. They both looked out over the hills. Birds soared above. The wind whispered through the trees. It should have been peaceful, but something darker stirred beneath it. I don't know how they found me, Ram said. After a while, I thought I had hidden the evidence well. Maybe I was wrong. Or maybe they've been watching all along, Sundar said. Waiting for you to get close to someone, to speak. Ram nodded slowly. You don't have to stay in this, Sundar said. You can leave. I won't blame you. Ram looked at him. The lines on his face were deep, not from age, but from carrying truth too long. Asterisk, still nothing. His heart thudded louder. He grabbed his jacket, shoved the tag in his pocket, and raced out of the hotel. The streets blurred past the window of the speeding car. It felt like every second stretched into a lifetime. When he reached the train yard, the air felt heavier, too quiet. Smoke no longer rose from the burned barrels. No laughter, no voices, just an eerie stillness. He walked through the maze of makeshift shelters, calling out softly. Ram? No answer. Ram, are you here? A man stepped out from behind a tarp, eyes wary. Sundar recognized him from days before. He's gone, the man said quietly. What do you mean gone? He left before sunrise, said he needed to disappear. Said it was safer for everyone. Did he say where he was going? Only this, the man replied, pulling a small folded piece of cloth from his pocket. Inside it was a torn piece of paper. No message. Just a rough hand-drawn map. 3 roads, a small river, and an X marked deep in the hills outside the city. Sundar took it with shaking hands. He thanked the man, then turned and walked quickly back to the car. They drove for nearly an hour, following the map's crude markers. The city faded behind them. Buildings gave way to fields. Fields gave way to trees. Eventually, the road narrowed into a dirt path that wound between tall grasses and forgotten stones. They reached a point where the car could go no further. Sundar stepped out and continued on foot. Each step kicked up dust and memories. Finally, after nearly 30 minutes of walking, he saw a shape ahead, an old stone structure, maybe once a watchtower or a rest post. Crumbling walls, vines growing along the side, and beside it, seated on the ground with his back against the stone, was Ram. He was alone. His shirt was damp with sweat. His metal leg lay stretched out. Beside him, a small satchel. He looked up slowly as Sundar approached. You found me, Ram said. They took everything, Sundar replied. Ram nodded. I know. They left me this. Sundar pulled the dog tag from his pocket and held it out. Ram took it, turned it in his hand, and stared at the carved name. I've seen these before, he said quietly. We took them off the kids. They had no names, just numbers. They weren't treated like people, just tools. Soldiers who were never meant to survive. Someone wants this story dead, Sundar said. You asked me once if I wanted to be remembered, Ram said. I think I do, but not for how I was broken. For how I tried to fix something. Then let's fix it, Sundar said. We may have lost the files, but we still have the truth. They won't let you walk away, Ram said. You know that now. Then we don't walk, Sundar said. We stand, Ram smiled. It was a small smile, worn and tired. But real, you're not what I expected, he said. Neither are you, Sundar replied. They sat there a while longer, letting the sun warm their skin. No cameras, no noise. Just two men. And a story the world needed to hear. But far down the road, hidden behind trees, a drone hovered silently. It blinked red once, then flew away, its signal already traveling across the air to an unknown location. The watchers were still watching. They were no longer just watching Ram. They were watching Sundar, ***, the weight of silence letter. Lay on the table like a quiet dare. There was no logo. No heading. No signature. Just a stamped phrase across the bottom in red ink. For national interest, your silence will be rewarded. Sundar sat across from it. His fingers steepled beneath his chin, his mind sifting through the meaning buried in those 8 words. It wasn't a threat. It was worse than that. It was an invitation. An invitation to forget, to walk away, to play along with a system that had spent decades sweeping people like Ram under the rug. To protect his name, his position, his influence at the cost of truth, a reward for silence. He thought back to Ram, to the old stone ruin in the hills, to the soft way his voice broke when he spoke of the children he couldn't save. Sundar had seen many things in his life, triumphs, innovations, failures, but never had he seen strength so quietly devastating. There was a weight in that man's silence, a weight built from memory, from wounds that never closed, from names that were never written down. No reward in the world could make Sundar forget that. He picked up the letter and lit a match. The paper, curled and blackened in his hand. The flame licked the red words until they vanished into ash. And as the last edge crumbled, Sundar felt something loosen inside him. A thread, a fear, a boundary snapped. He made his decision. By the next day, Sundar had assembled a team. Not his usual group of corporate strategists or engineers, but a handpicked circle of quiet warriors, journalists, archivists, veteran advocates, and 2 trusted legal minds. They worked in secret. No digital trails, no cloud storage. Sundar brought what he had remembered from the stolen files, and Ram filled in the rest names, dates, locations, faces. It wasn't complete. It was fragmented, messy, but it was enough. They called it Operation. Second Light. The name came from something Ram had said one night when they sat by the ruined train tracks. First light is when they see you die. Second light is when they finally see why you lived. The operation would have 2 parts. First, they would create a private, secure database of whistleblower testimonies and evidence, verified and locked behind the safest encryption known. Second, they would build a public-facing platform, a living archive, a storytelling engine where the forgotten could speak in their own voice, not as victims, but as witnesses. Not for pity, but for memory. Meanwhile, Ram began to write. Every night, he would sit on a folding chair beneath a dim light and write with a pen on ruled paper. It wasn't elegant, but it was pure. His words had no polish, only pain and clarity. And through those words, a story emerged, not just of war, but of betrayal, of survival, and above all, of love for country. Love for his fallen friends. Love for the simple dignity of being seen. Sundar read the pages as they came in, one by one. Each felt like a wound and a prayer. The day came sooner than expected. A leak. Someone from inside the circle. Maybe scared. Maybe paid off past fragments of the story to the media. It began as a whisper, an unnamed source, a mystery veteran. The rumors of government negligence, the internet lit up. Forums caught fire. Hashtags began trending. Then a well-respected news outlet published the full first installment of Ram's story. With his permission and Sundar's backing, within hours, the world changed. Some applauded, others recoiled. But no one ignored it. Headlines screamed betrayal. Ministers denied involvement. Public figures rushed to show support or distance. But in the center of the storm stood Ram, unshaken, finally seen. And beside him stood Sundar, no longer as the tech leader, but as a witness, a partner. A man who chose to speak when silence was more profitable. The two of them sat together, watching the news that night. The broadcast played a clip from Ram's first interview. "I was never the hero," Ram said. "I just didn't want to be the villain," they wrote into the silence. Sundar turned to him. "You're changing lives." Ram shook his head gently. "We're changing memory. That's harder. That's what matters." They sat in silence for a long time. Then Sundar pulled something from his pocket and handed it to Ram. The child's dog tag. "I kept it," he said. Ram stared at it for a long time. Then closed his hand around it and nodded. Double quotes for him. He whispered. "And the others." Months passed. Operation Second Light grew. Other veterans came forward. Voices rose from places long buried. One by one, forgotten names found their place again. But not everyone was happy. A legal order arrived. A summons. Sundar was being called to a private inquiry. Behind closed doors, senior officials asked him questions wrapped in polite threats. What was his motive? Who was funding him? What did he hope to gain? He gave them only one answer. The truth. They said nothing. They didn't need to, but when he left the room, he noticed something strange. One of the older men, a decorated general with tired eyes, slipped a folded slip of paper into Sundar's hand as he passed. Sundar opened it. Once he was alone, it said, "We remember too." Don't stop. Not everyone in power had forgotten. That night, Sundar stood outside Ram's small new home. It was modest, tucked away in a quiet street, donated anonymously by someone who had read his story and wanted to say thank you. He knocked on the door. Ram opened it, still holding a pen. He had been writing again. More pages? Sundar asked. Just trying to get it all out before I'm too old to hold a pen, Ram said. You've got time. You never really know that, Ram replied. They sat together on the porch. The air smelled of jasmine and wet earth. It had rained earlier, and everything was fresh, clean. Do you regret it? Sundar asked softly. Ram didn't answer right away. I regret the ones we lost, he said. But not telling the truth, not being seen. It was worth it, Sundar said. Ram looked at him, and for the first time, his face held no shadows. You gave me a second light, Sundar, he said. No, Sundar replied. You lit it yourself. I just made sure the world saw it. They sat there long after the stars came out. No cameras. No headlines. Just two men and the quiet promise of a story that would never be buried again. In somewhere. In a dusty government storage room, a forgotten file was quietly marked, closed, not erased. The truth had survived, and because of that, so had they. Asterisk.